Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming and joining us for the learning of Torah Hashem, Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. As always, we begin with HaKoros HaToif to TorahAnytime.com for giving us the worldwide platform that they have constructed. Also to Kol HaLashon for giving us their global network. To our subscribers, our Zoomers, to Torah Communications Network, to YouTube, and all the other places that stream this share. Tonight, we have three sponsors. There is an anonymous sponsor, one of my dear Talmidim, who's sponsoring the share. The share is also sponsored by dear Talmud in London, Howard Turner and family, in honor of his father's yahrzeit, which is on the second day of Shvat. Fishel Ben Aaron, his neshama should have a lichtige Gan Eden. He should be a melitz yosher for his family, for all of us, and all of Klal Yisrael. And then we received a third sponsor, again from subscriber, Eli and Chani Weisfeld, with gratitude to Hashem on their daughter's marriage this Sunday. Their daughter Isabella to Avram Gelman. The zivik should be Eili Yafazain. It should be Baina Bayisnem and Yisrael and have everything wonderful. If you would like to be a sponsor of this share, which is heard all over the world and by literally hundreds and hundreds of people, and on many different platforms, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. In this week's Parsha, we are given the glorious mitzvah of Tefillin. Indeed, the Maral Diskin famously said that they would take, on the night of Pesach, they weren't allowed to leave the house. They would take the hides of the Korban Pesach and manufacture the first tefillin. So there's a real direct connection between the tefillin and Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. The very first tefillin were manufactured as they were getting ready to leave Egypt. Now this mitzvah of tefillin, it's really, really, really behooves us to learn as much as we can about this mitzvah. Its reward is very great. The Gemara says in Masechtas Menachos about tefillin, Hashem aleihem yichyu. When you put Hashem upon you, you will live. We know that the shin on the tefillin shalosh, the dalid in the knot, and the yud in the knot of the tefillin shel yad spells the shem shakai. So we are very literally putting Hashem upon us, besides of all the shemos in the parshios of the tefillin. So it tells us in the Gemara that Hashem aleim, when you put Hashem upon you, it will cause you yichyu, to live. Furthermore, we know that in the parshios of Kriya Shema, we say, right, you should tie them on your hands and put it as frontlets by your eyes, and then it says L'man yirbu yameichem v'mei v'neichem. It says L'man yirbu yameichem v'mei v'neichem on the three mitzvahs of L'manatem oisam es b'neichem, and ukshartem oisam lois al yedchem, and uchsaftem al mezuzas beisecha v'shirecha, and then it says L'man yirbu yameichem. So already twice we have a source that tefillin promotes longevity. The Be'er Hativ tells us that the biggest mitzvahs aseh, we have 248 positive commandments. He says that the biggest positive commandment is the mitzvah of tefillin. Now, when it says that the tefillin should be l'toitafos beinei necha, the word toitafos is a word that's enigmatic. As a matter of fact, we know that Kriya Shema is, we paskin that you could say it in any language. We paskin v'ayim shemaya tishma b'chol lashon she'ata shemeya, in any language. However, there's certain words that we have to say in Hebrew because we don't know exactly how to translate them. And one of those words is l'toy tafais. We don't know. I mean, Rashi says one pshat that toit in Coptic is 2 and fais in African is 2, giving us 4, and that's why we know that the tefillin of the head has 4 compartments. It has the same contents as the tefillin shel yad, but the tefillin shel yad only has 1 compartment, and the tefillin shel rosh has 4 compartments. The Tzror Hamor, which is an ancient, very respected sefer, says a remarkable pshat in what l'toitafos means. He says that actually toitafos is of Egyptian origin, and the word toitafos was actually the word totaf in Egyptian is a tool that in ancient times they used to see things better. It was like the ancient glasses. And says the Tzror Hamor, that's the meaning of V'hayu l'toitafos beinei necha, that the tefillin should be like glasses by your eyes, that you should be able to see clearly. Now, that follows very, very well with what it says. It actually says, it uses the words about tefillin several times, but one time it says, "V'hayu l'toitafos beinei necha, l'man tia Torah Hashem b'ficha," in order that the Torah of Hashem should be in your mouth, meaning that the tefillin should help you see clearly. The Chinuch says that we are in a battle royal. Chinuch is, of course, the master of the mitzvahs. The Chinuch says that we are in a battle royal with the Yetzer Hara, who tries to get us to be distracted by all the pleasures of this world, and there are an immense amount of distractions in this world. And the Chinuch goes on to say, and this is sports terminology, the Chinuch goes on to say that the Yetzer Hara, in his battle with the Yetzer Tov, has home team advantage, because we are on this world, on a world that's gashmi, on a world that's material, and the tefillin are to remind us to see the world clearly. So they are like a pair of glasses to see the world clearly. Like it says, this world is actually cloaked in darkness. The Medrash, Choshech ze Yavan. Choshech is Greece. Now Yavan is beauty. Yavan, Yud Vav Nun, is the same letters as Noi, as beauty. Yavan, the Olympian might and grandeur, is really a darkness, because it misleads us from pursuits of spirituality which are eternal. So the tefillin are to be l'toitafos beinei necha, to be a glasses to help us see and pierce the darkness, l'man tia Torah Hashem b'ficha. Now, it also says that it should be l'toitafos beinei necha ki b'chayzik yad ha'itzianu Hashem mitzrayim, that Hashem took us out from Egypt with a strong hand. So the tefillin are a pair of glasses that we should see properly and remember the miracles that Hashem wrought in Egypt. The miracles in Egypt, says the Ramban, this is one of the most famous Rambans of the entire Torah, the Ramban says that the tefillin, why do we always remember Mitzrayim? We have a lot of miracles. The miracle of Purim with Achashverosh, the Persian miracle of Paras and Madai was stupendous. But we really only remember it on Purim. But Mitzrayim, we're obsessed with Egypt. L'man tizkar es yom tzeitzcha me'eretz Mitzrayim kol yemei chayecha. Yemei chayecha hayomim, kol yemei chayecha haleilos. I mean, we have to remember it every day of our life. That's 365/7. We remember it twice a day, every day of our lives. Now, why is that? So the Ramban says that the events of Egypt remind us of Schar v'Oinish, how Hashem punished the Egyptians with the Makkos, with Kriyas Yamsuf, and Hashem rewarded the Jews. Here the Jews did great things. They circumcised themselves before they left Egypt, at all ages. They gave up the idolatry of the Egypt that they were immersed in for 117 years, for over a century. And they offered the Korban Pesach, sacrificing, risking their life to sacrifice the Egyptian god. So Hashem rewarded them. Hashem rewarded us by taking us out of Egypt and taking us as a nation. So it says that the tefillin are supposed to remind us daily. The Hayul Teitafes Bein Einechem should be like a pair of glasses that allow us to see clearly, and our belief in Schar v'Oinish. Also, it's to see clearly the message of hope. This is also, Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim is a very great message of hope, like the Chakal Yitzchak, the Frierdiker Spinker Rebbe, Zeichel Tzadik V'Kodesh L'Bracha, Schusi Yogan Aleinu. Chakal Yitzchak said that it's important for somebody to remember twice a day that we were at the 49th degree of Tumah, at the lowest that we could sink. Another second later, we would have been at the 50th level, we would have been ruined. We would have been doomed. And yet, 50 days later, we were zeichet to get the Torah and see Hashem at Har Sinai. That's how a person could turn things around. And that's also important to remember and to see with these glasses the memory of Yetzias Mitzrayim. It should be as a sign on your hand, ulizikaron bein einechem. Now, even though it's brought down that the tefillin shel rosh has a bigger kedusha, the tefillin of the head has a bigger kedusha, first of all, because it has two of Hashem's names. It has the shin embossed upon it, and a dalid, while the tefillin shel yad only has the yud. It also has 4 compartments instead of 1 compartment. Yet we put the tefillin shel yad on first, because the tefillin shel yad represents action, and the tefillin shel rosh represents thought. And in Judaism, action speaks louder than thoughts. Action is more than thoughts. Like it says, Ema ma'at v'asei harbe. Say a little, do a lot. This person has all kinds of grandiose plans and schemes and lamasa. Tefillin shel yad comes before the tefillin shel rosh because action is bigger than thoughts. Now, there are important things to have in mind over here. We know that we're not supposed to interrupt at all between the putting on of our tefillin shel yad and the tefillin shel reish. The Gemara says that we know that at times of a Jewish war, if a person has a sin, then he's turned away from the ranks of war. Misha nisyore me'aveira shebiyadei, that he did a sin, he's turned away. He doesn't go to battle. So the Gemara says even if somebody speaks between putting on the tefillin shel yad and the tefillin shel reish, he doesn't go to battle. That's a sin. Why does there have to be such a immediacy? Why does there have to be such an uninterrupted fluid between the putting on of the tefillin shel yad and the tefillin shel reish? That's because the Rebbeinu Shalom expects us Rachmana liba bay. Hashem wants from us heart. Hashem wants from us thought. V'dabek libeinu b'mitzvah. Hashem wants us to attach our mind to our actions. You know, there are people that do a lot of things. They do them robotically. They do them without any thought. It's such a shame. It's such a shame. We've said many times that a person sleeps away a third of their life. But if before they go to sleep, they have in mind, and even preferably they articulate, I'm sleeping so that tomorrow I should be able to learn better. I'm sleeping that tomorrow I shouldn't be cranky with my spouse. I'm sleeping so that tomorrow I should be able to concentrate on my davening. Or even I'm sleeping in order that I should have a healthy body. They convert their sleep into these mitzvahs because hechsher mitzvah k'mitzvah. And therefore that's why there's no interrupting between the tefillin shel yad action and the tefillin shel reish thought. That we should do everything mindfully. That's a very important function of the tefillin. Now it happens to be that the Vilna Gaon adds something over here. The Vilna Gaon says that an essential message of the tefillin is connect the intellect to the emotion. Now this is a very important discipline. You see, there's a lot of things that we intellectually accept, but we're not there yet to emotionally experience. The example that I like to give about this is, if you'll ask, I'll turn to my vast audience and say, who believes that when they daven, Hashem is listening to them? Everybody would look at me in wonderment. What kind of question is that to ask a religious audience? We're not atheists. We say in our davening, Baruch atah Hashem shemei tefillah. Blessed is Hashem who listens to tefillah. Of course he's listening. But then I ask you in all honesty, do you feel it when you daven? Because if you did, how could you daydream? If you did, how could you get distracted? If you did, why aren't you really into it? The answer is, I know it intellectually, but it's not part yet of my emotion. And that is what we say in Aleinu. V'yadat hayom, you should know it today, but then v'ashivoisa elavavecha, then bring it to your heart. That's not so easy. The Gaon says that's part of the message of tefillin, the tying of the intellect to the emotion. And the way to do this is when we repeat things over and over and over again. This is the explanation. You know, it's not so far away from Pesach. People are already getting nervous. The women are already getting nervous. those that don't go to a hotel, they're already getting nervous. The men, if they go to a hotel, they're getting nervous where they're going to get the money from. But in Agad we say, "Va'afilu kulanu chachamim, kulanu nevainim, kulanu zekenim, kulanu yodim es haTorah." Even if we're all wise, understanding, old, there's nobody young to teach, and we know the whole Torah is still mitzvah aleinu l'saper b'yetzias Mitzrayim. It's still a mitzvah to talk about Egypt. Now the question is, if we know it already, why is it a mitzvah? If we know it already, let's get into the esoteric zayas. The answer is we might know it, but to make it part of our instincts, to make it part of our emotions, we have to do it over and over and over again until it enters our bones. That's what they did in Slobodka. In Slobodka, they went to the Beis HaMusar, and they said 100 times in a row, in a slow sing-song way, Olam hazeh doimeh lepraiser lifnei olam haba. This world is only a hallway to the next world. All it is a hallway. It's only a hallway. And they said it 100 times until it seeped in. There was another thing they said 100 times. Toyavas Hashem kol gevalev. It's an abomination of Hashem, one who is haughty, one who is a balgaiva, one who is an arrogant. And they would say it 100 times until it sank into them, till it became a part of their heart. Now, we know that it says, V'haya lecha la'os. It should be for you as a sign, al yadcha, on your hand. And the Gemara tells us, for you as a sign, but not for others. That's why we put the tefillin shel rosh under our jacket, or under our sleeve. It's supposed to be covered. It's only for you as a sign. But the tefillin shel rosh is exposed, right? V'ro kalame oretz ki shem Hashem nikra alecha v'yaru mimeka zet tefillin shel rosh. That's exposed. So Ramosha says, what's the idea of hiding the tefillin shel yad, making it personal? So Ramosha Zechtav Kodesh Brachas Chusi Yagan Aleinu. Ramosha says that in order to teach others and influence others, first you have to absorb the lesson yourself. So first you put the tefillin shel yad for yourself personally. You want to be a father teaching children, a zayda teaching grandchildren, an elder zayda teaching great-grandchildren. You want to be mashpia on your friends. You want to be mashpia on your family. First, you have to absorb something yourself. Great speakers, when they heard something, they didn't say it over right away. They first wanted to make sure that they internalize it, and only then would they share it with others. That's what it says. Yesh na dairish ve'ena na mekayim. There are people that darshan well, but they don't fulfill it well. The Shinova Rebbe, the great Shinova Rebbe, one of the holy sons of the sons of Rav, the Divrei Chaim, he says the Gemara talks about that there's certain organs, like the liver, Aidi de Torach lemiflat, since it's so busy giving out blood, loy bala, it doesn't absorb blood. So you don't have to worry about it absorbing blood, because Aidi de Torach lemiflat, since it gives out so much, it doesn't absorb. He said Riley, unfortunately, there were people that are so busy giving it out they don't absorb it themselves. So Moshe said we have to be careful. First, we have to absorb it ourselves, and only then can we teach it to others. So the Tefillin Shel Yad, that's us absorbing it, and then we could have the Tefillin Shel Rosh, where we comes afterwards. That's actually, it's one of the biggest Yesodis in Chinuch. It's what we say every day in Kriya Shema. And these matters that you should, that's instructed today upon your heart, if you absorbed it in your heart, then vishinantam levanecha, then you could teach it to your children. As I said many times, that's why so many fathers make Hesa baseball fans out of their children. Because the children see the gleam in the father's eye when he talks about opening day. The gleam in his eye when he speaks about Mickey Mantle and Yogi Berra. It's why mothers make out of their daughters devout shoppers. Because the daughter sees the gleam on the mother's eye. We're going to spend the day in the mall with a gleam. So that's why only then vishinantam levanecha. Now there is a Chidush Arim that I told you before. I want to elaborate on it. It makes us really make an effort to give more attention to our tefillin. The Chidush Arim says that if you have an old pair of tzitzis or an old talis, you could wrap it in a bag, a separate bag, not with the chicken bones, and throw it away. Because it's tashmish mitzvah. But an old pair of tefillin, or even a tefillin bag, you can't throw away. It needs geniza. It has to be put in shemus. Because that's tashmisha kedusha. Tashmisha kedusha, you can't throw away. So the Chidush Arim, the Heilige Ger Rebbe, Zech Tzadik Levrachas Chus Yagan Aleinu, he says, imagine you have an old bag of tefillin. Because you kept your tefillin in that bag, it became a tashmisha kedusha. He says, if you put the ideas of the tefillin in your head, in your heart, you're making out of your head, we're making out of our head and our heart tashmisha kedusha. Here's a person, he follows Rav Miller's advice. It says, so Rav Miller takes this literally, that when you put on the tefillin, it says it means Laman in order that Tia Teres Hashem B'ficha, that the Torah of Hashem should be in your mouth. So he says the tefillin is a reminder, when am I going to learn Torah today? We're putting on the tefillin, Laman Tia Teres Hashem B'ficha. So Ramil says you put on the tefillin, you say to yourself, so when am I going to wear? I have a shir in the night, but that's not today, that's tonight. When am I going to learn Torah today? Do I have time? I'm going to learn Torah. I'm going to learn maybe some Mishnah Berurah, some Halacha, maybe some Musar, maybe some Mishnayos. But so when you do that, when you're putting the message of the tefillin in your head, or like we said, Laman Tisker Es Yom Tzeitzcha Me'eretz Mitzrayim, you remember the miracles of Egypt. And you remember Schar v'Einish, that Hashem rewards and punishes for everything that we do. So you're putting the ideas of tefillin in your head, so then you're making your head and your heart into Tashmishay Kedusha. It's a remarkable thing. I want to tell you, I found a wonderful I found a wonderful sefer this year called Nesivas Hadas, and he says that the Chinuch says that the tefillin help us to battle the Yetzer Hara who has home team advantage. So he says, how does it help us? It helps us because the tefillin, that when we put it on, gives us Kedusha. And he quotes a Rambam. This is a Rambam. This is, everybody holds to the Rambam. Rambam is in Hilchos Tefillin. The Rambam says, Kedushas Tefillin, Kedusha Gedailahi. It's a lashon of Rambam. The holiness of Tefillin, it's a very great holiness. Shekol's man shetfillin b'roishay shel adam ubizrayay. When the tefillin is on your head and on your arm, it helps you that hu anav. It makes you humble, v'yor shemayim, and God-fearing. Ve'enoi nimshach, and you're not drawn to skaik usicha b'tela. You're not drawn to levity and waste of time. Ve'enoi mahara b'machshavas reis. You don't think about sinful thoughts. Ela mafana libay b'divrei ha'emes. It turns the heart to the way of truth. Now, what this means, of course, people say, how exactly did tefillin make me holy? One thing we know, if you're going to scroll on your cell phone while wearing tefillin, then you're going to lose out on its holy impact. If you're going to sit in shul and read a paper with your tefillin, then you're going to lose its holy effect. We have to treat the tefillin with holiness, and then it'll do its magic upon us. It also helps that while wearing tefillin, we should have a guf naki. We have a clean body. That's why, although boys, chinuch, they wear yarmulke, they wear tzitzis already. When they get their upsharon, they're putting on a pair of tzitzis as soon as they're toilet trained. Right? And we teach them learning and everything, but tefillin, which need a guf naki, they don't put on until they have to, bar mitzvah, a month before bar mitzvah. But again, if we want to be, if a tefillin bag could be Tashmishay Kedusha, then we can make ourselves Tashmishay Kedusha. We can make ourselves holy by putting the lessons of tefillin into our head and into our hearts. Now we mentioned from Rav Miller, L'man tia Torah Hashem b'ficha. Literally, he means it's a reminder. When am I learning Torah today? Tefillin is a reminder for that we should ask ourselves, when am I going to learn Torah today? When am I going to learn Torah tonight? Truth of the matter is, we learn out a lot of things from L'man tia Torah Hashem b'ficha. One of the things is that we can only write the tefillin on the hide of a kosher animal. Because it says, L'man tia Torah Hashem b'ficha, it could only be b'mutter b'ficha. It could only be from something that's mutter in your mouth. So it could only be on a hide of a kosher animal. But the Torah we learned in the Daf Yomi recently in Sanhedrin, it's kapatish yifutza sela. It's like a hammer that bangs on a rock. There's so many meanings. So I'll tell you an interesting thing. There was a cipher in Egypt, famous cipher, a scribe in Egypt, by the name of Rav David Mugrabi. Now both his hands were amputated, and both his feet were amputated. He was a quadriplegic. And he wrote Sifrei Torah with the quill in his mouth. And he wrote beautiful Sifrei Torah. And they used to say that he was a fulfillment of that which it says in the Pasuk, L'man tiyeh Torahs Hashem b'ficha, that the Torahs Hashem was mamish from his mouth, from your mouth. Now, it was controversial. The Ramah Mepanai said that such tefillin are puzzle. Rabbi Yaakov Emden discusses one who wrote tefillin, one who was amputated, and he wrote tefillin with the quill with his toes. And Rabbi Yaakov Emden said that by the Eved, such tefillin is kosher. There's a question about one who is amputated. Can he fulfill the mitzvah of lulav with his mouth? And he says that it doesn't say ulekachtem biyad. It just says ulekachtem lochem. And therefore the Shaarei Tshuva quotes from Rav Molchai, I believe. Shaarei Tshuva quotes from Rav Molchai that he could take the tefillin, and the Birkei Yosef brings a raya that it says that a woman who is amputated and her husband died childless, and she has the mitzvah of chalitza, she could remove the shoe from her brother-in-law with her mouth. So it can be done with the mouth. That's just an aside. Now, I'm not leaving the tefillin so fast, although there's a lot more to cover on this parsha. But tefillin we do every day, and it's such an amazing mitzvah. It says, these frontlets in the area between your eyes, paralleling the area between your eyes. So the Paneach Raza says, it says, Ki Shem Hashem Nikra Alecha, the name of Hashem is called upon you, Yaru Mimeka, and the Goyim will fear you. And the Gemara says, Zet Tefillin Shel Rosh. So says the Paneach Raza, Shem Mem, is a acronym of Shin Mesinai. That the Shin that's supposed to be on the Tefillin Shel Rosh, we have a Shin, comes from Sinai. It's Halach L'Moshe Sinai. Now, and also, Ki Shem, Shem Mem, stands for Shin Manichin, that we put on the Tefillin 300 days. Now this is, the Rabbeinu Ephraim says that the Shin on the tefillin represents that we put it on 300 days. And the Paneach Raza tells us the calculation. The solar year is 365 days. We don't put on the tefillin on 52 Shabbos. And we don't put it on in Chutz La'aretz on 13 days of Yom Tov. What's 13 days of Yom Tov? That's the 4 days of Sukkot, the first 2 days and the last 2 days. The 4 days of Pesach, that's 8. 2 days of Shavuos, that's 10. 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, that's 12. And 1 day of Yom Kippur, that's 13. So 13 plus 52 is 65. So we don't put it on 65, so we put on 300. And that's why there's a Shin, the 300 days we put on, and that's what Shem is Shin Manichin. Of course, this means that the Rabbeinu Ephraim and the Paneach Raza we're talking about in Chutz La'aretz, when we have 2 days Yom Tov, And it's also a proof that they held that you don't put on tefillin during Chalamayit. Because if you put on tefillin during Chalamayit, and some people even put on tefillin Chalamayit with a bracha, then there would be more than 300 days. I also thought that maybe Kishen, the Shin Mem, could also be Shmiras Mitzvahs, because that's what the tefillin remind us, to keep all the mitzvahs. And it says that tefillin is shakal keneged kol ha-mitzvahs. Now, Rav Aryeh Levine, the father-in-law of Rav Elyashiv, the Gadol Hador Rav Elyashiv, married Rav Aryeh Levine's daughter. So Rav Aryeh Levine was the shver of Rav Elyashiv, the Pesach Hadar. Rav Aryeh Levine became very famous because of the wonderful sefer written about him, Tzaddik in Our Time. If you haven't read that sefer, then you're missing out in part of your education. That should be in your library. That should be a must-read, the Sefer Tzaddik in Our Time. I mean, Rav Aryeh Levine was a chaplain in the prisons at the time of the British Mandate, and indeed, he had to see Jews executed by the British. And in the horrifying execution of the two Kedoshim, Barzine and Feinstein, he was there right before they were executed, and as their last request, they asked to put on tefillin. And he would relate at bar mitzvahs, to bar mitzvah boys, how awesome the sight of these two people putting on tefillin, knowing it's the last mitzvah that they would do in their life, and how they put it on with such devotion. And he told the bar mitzvah boys, you don't have to think that you're dying in 10 minutes to put on your tefillin with great kavanah. It's such a remarkable mitzvah. And he told over also with great feeling about a survivor of the concentration camps, of the death camps. Rabbi Yamin Beinish Finkel was a Zechtzar Kodesh Rachas Chusiyang and Aleinu. He was a survivor of the death camps. And he put on tefillin every day. He had a small tefillin, he put it on. One time a Nazi caught him and took the tefillin shorosh and clubbed him on the head repeatedly until he fainted. And the Nazi thought he killed him. And then he took his knife and cut the tefillin, ruined them. Maisa is Rav Finkel survived, and they say that even afterwards he risked his life, crossed over a fence into another camp, and continued every day to put on tefillin. When we put on tefillin, we have to know that we have in our DNA the Mesiras Nefesh, the sacrifice, and the love for this incredible mitzvah. I will tell you that although I got carried away a little bit about tefillin tonight, I only told you a drop in the bucket of what there is to speak about this holy mitzvah. It should be, I should whet your appetite to learn more and more about the mitzvah of tefillin. But let's talk about, we know that the Torah contains all wisdom. As we say in Pirkei Avos, hafoich ba, the kulaba. Turn it around, everything is in it. And our Gedolei Yisrael, when they learned Torah, they filed away every detail to apply it when the time was right. So I have to tell you something that Rav Twersky relates. This is a story that happened in Russia. In Russia at the time, there was, of course, terrible anti-Semitism, and they used to concoct accusations of treason and put people in prison for life and cart them off to Siberia for trumped-up charges. And one day they arrested the Rav of the city, Rav David Bechov of Bechov, and they threw him in jail. And when he stood up in front of, this is a mock court, it's already signed, sealed, and delivered. So the judges started to speak in French. So Rav David backed away from where they had him stand. So they right away barked at him, "Who gave you permission to leave?" So he said, I want to be honest. I saw you speaking in French, and I knew you didn't want me to understand what you're saying, but I speak French fluently, so I backed away so I shouldn't hear. It made such an impression upon them, that honest act, that they freed him. Okay, it's a nice story. But Rav David of Bechov said, where did he get from to do that? To the contrary, stay and listen. Maybe you could hear something that might help you in your case. Where did he know to do that? He says it's a medrash in this week's parsha. By the Makkah of Arba, after telling Paro about the locusts, it says, "Vayifen vayetze me'im Paro," that Moshe Rabbeinu turned away and went out. Says the Medrash, Moshe Rabbeinu saw them discussing about it, and he didn't feel it was proper etiquette to listen. So Vayifen vayetze me'im Paro, he turned and he went out. Rav David of Bechov said that he learned from this Medrash that it's not proper etiquette to eavesdrop, but rather he turned away and he went out. And that saved his life. Hafeichba, the kulaba. I thought that was a remarkable lesson. And now we come to another great fundamental lesson. But before we discuss it, I first of all want to thank our sponsors, our anonymous sponsor tonight, a very dear Talmud of mine. Also, Howard Turner from London, in honor of his father's yahrzeit on Beis Shvat. Fishel Ben Aaron, his neshama should have a great aliyah. He should be a meltz yosher for his family, for all of us and all of Klal Yisrael. And Eli and Chani Weisfeld, in gratitude to Hashem for their daughter's chasana this Sunday. Isabella, to Avram Gelman, the Zivik should be Ala Yafazain. They should be Bain Abayis, L'Shem L'Seferes, and always be happy together. If you would like to sponsor a shir, text me to 718-916-3100. Or email me to rmmwsi, that's Rabbi Moshe Meir Weiss, Staten Island, at AOL.com. Also, Baruch Hashem, as we're learning the fascinating Masechta of Sanhedrin, our Zoom daf is growing very nicely. We would like to invite you to join us. Now, Motzi Shabbos, 8 p.m., 2 blat. Sunday through Thursday, 8 p.m., 1 blat. You just put in your computer at 8 p.m. zoomdaf.com, and then put in the password, which is my initials in all capital letters, RMMW, Rabbi Moshe Meir Weiss. Rashi tells us in the beginning of the Torah that really Torah means instruction, And really, the Torah could have started with the first mitzvah, which is in this week's parasha, of Achodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chadashim, Rishanu Lachem L'Chodshei Hashana. That this month is the first of the months, the first of all the months of the year. First of all, we learn from this that we use the lunar calendar. We also say that we don't count from January. That's why Rav Blumenkrantz Zatzal would always say, don't put on your check 1, because 1 is counting from January. We're supposed to count from Nisan. Put the word January whenever it's possible. Sometimes on computer forms you don't have a choice. But whenever possible, don't say 1, 2, 3, because that's counting from January, and Yidden don't count from January. Yidden count from Nisan. It's the first mitzvah in the Torah. Rav Soloveitchik made a very big point of saying that the first mitzvah of the Torah is about time, to impress upon us how important time is. The Ibn Ezra is one of our Rishonim, Tzadik L'Bracha, Zchus Yagen Aleinu. The Ibn Ezra wrote his famous poem, Adam Doyeg Al Ibud Damav. Person worries about the loss of their money. Ve'enoi Doyeg Al Ibud Yamav. They're not worried about the loss of their days, of time. When it comes the end of their life, Damav Einam Oizim, what they have in the bank, the money won't help them. Yamav Einam Chayzim. They can't get back the days. Time, it's a minig otik by Klal Yisrael, an ancient minig, to buy a chassan a golden watch. Of course, you don't break the bank for that, but those that can afford it buy the chassan a golden watch to impress upon him that time is golden. Time is golden. He even bought it for a kala, a diamond watch, to impress upon her that time is diamonds. The girl has to know that too. The Rav Nachman Mebreslov has a sefer called Sreifas Hazman, the tragedy of burning time. Or in America, we have people that want to kill time. That's a disaster. Time, it's interesting, Rabbi Twersky writes that before the sin of the Egel Azov, the idea of sanctification was not on space, place. Every place was sanctified. Any place you mention my name, I'll come and bless you. Every place was holy. The Shechina was all over Aretz Hadoim Ragla. The Shechina was everywhere. It was only after the sin of the golden calf that Hashem said, okay, make me a sanctuary. Make me a Mishkan. Then the Shechina, so to speak, was contracted and was placed in the Mishkan. But time, there was always the idea of time is holy. Right? It says that Bezdin Mekatchin HaChodesh. Bezdin, tonight is Rosh Chodesh. Bezdin sanctified. When Adam came and testified about the new moon, the Bezdin said Kadosh 3 times. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. They sanctified. There's an idea of sanctifying time. Time is holy. Same thing on Shabbos. It says, he sanctified it. And we know that the first 3 days, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, are an extension of the Shabbos before. And Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday belong to the Shabbos after. That's why in the Yom of Wednesday we already say at the end l'chunaranina in the Yom, because already Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday belong to the next Shabbos. That's why you could say Havdalah up till Tuesday, right? Because that belongs to the week before. But there's an idea of the sanctification of time. Time is holy. Just like we're supposed to have respect for a holy place, right? We have great respect for our shuls. Many people, they don't walk out of a shul turning their back to the shul, but rather they don't walk out on the shul turning their back to the shul, but rather they back out of the shul. It says, "Es mikdashi tiro." You should fear the mikdash. So just like there's a reverence for our place, there has to be Jews of thought have a reverence for time. There's an anecdote from the Chofetz Chaim. It of course doesn't pertain to our time. We're not on this level. But the Chofetz Chaim once saw one of his fancier relatives have curtains on the window. Now, it wasn't the custom. Today, everybody has curtains. But in Radin, nobody had curtains. And the Chofetz Chaim saw curtains on the window, and he made a comment, "I see dafim of Gemara hanging from the window." What he meant is somebody had to take away time from their learning to be able to afford curtains. So he didn't see curtains, he saw dafim of Gemara. There was a special respect for time. You have to know that we're madgish. We emphasize in our Kriya Shema every day the value of time. V'dibarta bam. You should speak about Torah. Bam is Torah. The Beis is the first letter in Torah Shabbat. Ksav, Bereshis. The Mem is the first letter in Torah Shabbat. Peh, the oral law. Me'amasai, Masechtas Brachas. V'dibarta bam. It says V'dibarta bam v'loi b'dvarim b'teilim. V'dibarta bam. Use your time. In this way, be a bum. If you debate the bum, speak about them. The Medrash says beferish. Debate the bum a little bit from. Don't be like the foolish that spend countless hours speaking about politics. People spend hours and hours and hours on their political analysis. Does it accomplish anything? Anything? I remember how people spent so much wasted time on talking about Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. What a waste of their life. But even more serious subjects. Do you think what you talk about, the hostages and Gaza, is going to make a difference? V'dibarta bam. And then to emphasize, v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veisecha, when you're in your house, not just in the Beis HaMedrash, and not just in the house, but and when you're traveling. Don't listen to Sean Hannity. Listen to a shir from Rav Miller. Listen to a shir from Rabbi Krohn, from Rabbi Reisman. Before you go to sleep, when you get up. Use the time. Lo yomer sefer ha'Torah hazeh mepicha v'gisa b'yomim v'layla. You know, the words that represent time, the words that represent time all have the same message. Shana, a year, means Shina, What change are you bringing about? Shah, an hour, means to turn. How are you turning a better leaf? Because the word Shah means to turn. Hashem didn't turn to Cain's offering. Zman means zimein. Designate your time. Right? Zimein means to designate. Designate your time for a purpose. We should use our time. The word rega, a moment, means regua. Regua means don't rush the moments. Use every moment. You see people, it's such a sight. People daven and they're rushing the davening as if a dog is chasing them. What are you rushing the davening? Okay, you have to go somewhere, okay? You can't daven. But people in general, they're rushing. Regua, give everything its attention. The Yiddish concept of time is the antithesis of the American phrase, to kill time. We don't kill time. Time is our most precious commodity. I'm going to conclude. I see we're already over an hour. I'm going to conclude. We're in davening. Could we ask for help? I think a big place where we articulate this is in Uvolet Zion. In Uvolet Zion we say, Baruch Hu Elokeinu, blessed is Hashem shebaranu lichvaydai. He created us for His honor. We bring honor to Hashem. When we live right, Shetei Shem Shemayim Esav Al Yadecha, the name of Hashem is loved through us. V'ivdilanu min hatayim. He separated us from those that go astray, from the masses. Right? It says, what do we say in the Siyam? Anu amelim v'heim amelim. We work and they work. Anu amelim v'kabim schar. What we do, we get reward for. V'heim amelim v'heim v'kabim schar. They toil. They don't get it. Their analysis of the football ball game, the hundreds of hours that they spend on their baseball team, the amelim v'heim v'kabim schar. The everlasting life, that's the Torah. You planted in us. That's what we say when we make Birchas HaTorah, right? Nasan lanu teres emes v'chayei olam nata b'seichenu. You planted the afterlife by us. Hu yiftach libeinu b'sirasa. Open our hearts to your Torah. You should be interested in it. Put in our hearts love for you, fear of you. To want to do your will, to serve you with a perfect heart. Why? That we shouldn't weary ourselves for emptiness. There are people that go through life and they weary themselves for emptiness. They don't think so. They're in the zealousness of the pursuit of money or the pursuit of happiness. But we should be occupied meaningfully, gainfully, laman le niger l'rik, that we shouldn't weary ourselves for emptiness. We want to thank you all for joining us. Wish you a good night, a good Chodesh, and a good Shabbos.